Great. Well, we'd like to welcome everybody to the Green and Gold Foundation's Back to School edition interview with one of our members, Ashley Stiles. Glad to have you all here today. And I'd like to kick things off with an introduction of Matt Fergan, who had this idea to connect Green and Gold Foundation members together through these informative interviews. So Matt, share with us how this all got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Doug. The goal that I had in mind was just to be able to provide some value to current members as well as potential members. And really what it comes down to is that, through COVID and things like that, we haven't been able to interact quite as much in person. And I think that a lot of the value that comes out of this group is to be able to chat with each other about what we do on a daily basis, what our industries are, and ultimately where we can help each other. We bring this group together to, again, provide value to each other, but also really push back on CSU and provide value to that school as well. And really the goal that I've kind of been tasked with is to bring in younger generations into the Green and Gold Foundation and to be able to show the type of caliber people that are in here. For Ashley, women in real estate, things of that nature, I think is going to be really exciting, and we're going to get a lot of members to be able to share their story. With that being said, I'll introduce Eric, who is the chairman of the Green and Gold Foundation.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think this is one of the vital pieces to why this group is together. Obviously, we all have an affiliation for CSU, and almost all of us, if not all of us, stepped on campus at 18 years old without a clear direction as to where we were going to go or how we were going to accomplish things we wanted to in life. And I think going back to those roots and interviewing some of the members and just hearing their story about the things they've learned along the way and their career success and getting to understand the makeup of each member is really important. So I appreciate Matt putting this together, and Doug, your ability to facilitate and to get those questions out of our members to really get to understand the keys to their success is vital. So this is something that I think will be very impactful for the membership. Super happy to do it. We can do things remote now, which makes it a lot easier for us to grab some content and provide it to the greater good without everybody having to be present at a certain time. So we'll record this obviously and send it out. But super happy to have Ashley as our first guest and really excited to hear your story.
Terrific.
Thanks.
Eric, Matt, thank you. Ashley, welcome. And for everybody who listens, I got to tell you, Green and Gold Foundation has been just such an asset in my life. I appreciate the invitation to join. James Iacino, Kevin Brinkman, Eric, interviewing with everyone and then deciding to say yes and get involved, lean into the Green and Gold Foundation, attend the events, and have just really enjoyed this experience. And so it's an honor to be here today and love the fact that we get to kick things off with Ashley. A little bit of background with Ashley. And the reason why I really enjoy it, I've got to tell you, as the chair of Tiger 21, most of the real estate developers I hang out with are middle-aged white guys. And so it's a breath of fresh air to be able to speak real estate with Ashley. So glad to be doing this. A little bit of background on Ashley, CSU alum, landscape architecture. So quite the change now to development, and then work with Bro and then McQueen for a number of years. And I was struck by your background, primarily design focused in resorts to start off. And now here we are, you're working with CSU, the Spur, and other great projects. And so anything else I should let the members know about you as we get started today?
Well, before we started recording, we were talking about football. And I am originally from Oklahoma, so I'm from Tulsa. And if you want to really talk about football, always, go Rams, but also go Sooners. Okay, so they're not in the same conference, which is fantastic. I get to continue to root for both. But I know what it's like to grow up when there's no professional football. So I think when you have no professional football, the college football just takes on a whole new meaning and a different level of tailgating. So yeah, it's a really good time. But thank you for having me. You're right. I did start in the design side of things, which is an interesting way to come into real estate development. Most folks either come in either from the finance side or the legal side. I did later go back and get my master's in finance and capital markets. So I did shore up a little bit of legitimacy, maybe from a paper perspective. But the design side was a really fantastic way to come in, because I think what it has allowed me to do is to think about how we deliver spaces differently, because I already buy into and understand the power of design and the placekeeping aspects of, kind of what real estate development entails. So, I was lucky enough to work for some pretty great people and have great clients. And one of those, we had an investor who was the main owner of the Four Seasons resorts. And so I got to work on a lot of Four Seasons. And one of them I designed twice, because we designed it and then a hurricane happened and then we did it again. So you immediately got to like fix all the things that you wish you would have done differently the first time. But they really understood how to create a sense of arrival, how to engage with their users in a multitude of different ways. So if you've ever stayed at a Four Seasons, now everybody does it, but the Four Seasons was like the first one to really think about like hospitality as like a multi-sensory experience. And so the Four Seasons had a patented scent. The arrival at every Four Seasons is really similar. And then the way that they greet their guest and the way that they kind of like make sure that you're taken care of and keep notes on you and what you like and what you prefer and what you've asked for in the past. It just creates a different level of hospitality experience. And this was like in the early 2000s. So this is way before we ever talked about like experiential development. And so I think that, we kind of were stealing bits and pieces of, what made for great experiences when we all traveled from the hospitality industry to bring it into like everyday development. So I was fortunate that I was kind of in that and believed in it really early. And so I got to leverage it as I moved over to the design or the development side. I would say I was a good designer, but I understood how to make money, which was a rarity in the design world. So I quickly became like running projects and managing projects and interfacing with the clients more than I was designing. And so I think that that's why it just seemed like a natural pivot that some of my clients who were developers took me. And that's how I got into development.
I love it. Thank you. And I, tie it back to the Green and Gold Foundation and our experience here around connection and mentorship. Sounds like you had some incredible mentors and experience over the last 20 years. And, that's what it's all about now. How do we pay that forward as we've all been beneficiaries of great mentorship experience? Question for you that I have based on that, here we are, 2022, and Chairman Powell comes out in Jackson Hole last Friday and says the Fed's going to do everything we can to kill inflation, get it back into our target range of 2%. And we saw the markets sell off in response to that on Friday and continuing through this week, although they were up a little bit today. And, we're in a rising interest rate environment. And so give us a sense of what are you seeing in the real estate market today? As you're developing projects, what kind of challenges are you seeing and how long does this last?
I wish I knew that. Okay. Yeah. I wish I knew how long it was going to last. I think so. We're in a really tough spot for new projects. So like, I am in a fortunate position that where I'm at with several projects, I would say with the exception of one that I think is going to be the most challenging because we're really close to breaking ground, is that we're stuck against high interest rates. We have not really seen the total effect of that interest rate increase to bring down material cost. And then we're kind of already, you can only go so far in terms of like in development, you have two levers. It's like cost and revenue, and that's it. And so if we don't believe that we want to push up any further against on the revenue side, then it's like we really have to have hope that we can control cost. And so it has made projects challenging. I will give you like a little insight into how I manage that. But I think the one thing that I am seeing from a market perspective is we are starting to get phone calls with people looking for work on the sub side. So where maybe a couple months ago when we sent out our pricing set, we had 2 plumbers who would respond to it, we're getting 5 now. So we are starting to see, because people are anticipating that there's going to be a softening of the market. And so I think from the labor side of things, I think we're seeing an uptick of interest, which is really encouraging. So we're hoping that things are going to follow, because it's really tough when you only get one person to respond, you have no options, right? So that's really encouraging for us right now. The other side is that I spend a lot of time in the front side of my projects really establishing, and I hate it when people will just use the word brand, but effectively that's what it is. But I really develop like, what's going to be the North Star for this project? Like, what's the why behind the project? Like, who am I serving? What is important to them? Really making sure that I understand the answers to those questions. So when I'm faced with tough decisions related to like cost and where am I going to find savings, I'm not taking things out of projects that are really meaningful to that user group, or that would cause them to select our project over somebody else's project. So I'm trying to be thoughtful in those decisions, because I've done work early to establish what's going to be important.
Where do you see, that's very encouraging. Want to reflect on what you're seeing in terms of subs and that more people are starting to bid on the work. That's a good sign that we're starting to ease maybe some of our supply pressure. What about supply chain, like deliverables? I've heard everything from trying to get a roof put on a building to steel, and that it's still backlogged. What are you seeing in your projects?
So I would say having a really great relationship with your GC. And GCs have come like we used to call it, to be fair, it was like pre-con was free-con, like back in the day. And it was their hopes of not having to bid the job, or if they had to bid the job, that they had so much information that they would easily win the work. It is not necessarily free anymore. And the value that GCs are bringing to that process by making the selection early and committing to somebody is really helping to identify those long lead pieces, because they know that their success is also tied to that, and that this job is theirs, right? So they're really putting in a lot more effort related to the early kind of mapping of those challenges. There's only so much we can do with it, and only so much that we can anticipate, but we know where those constraints are. Like, we know the items that we have to essentially order the day we close our loan, and to make sure that they show up on time. And logistics is like, the planning of projects is so much more intense than it's ever been. I think for the supply chain issues, but also because so many projects that I'm involved in right now are in very urban context. Like, I don't have a lot of like open greenfield development. So just the logistics of planning in a really dense location has gotten harder. So
And
there's no room to store generators. You have to buy 18 months in advance. Okay. So
absolutely. So that brings up 2 points that I want to follow up on. You'd mentioned financing, closing on your loans. What is the landscape for financing? We're much different than 2008. The banks are very strong. Do you see the banks getting cautious and tightening things up a little bit? Is your access to capital still strong? What are you seeing out there?
Well, so there's still a lot of capital in the market. Yeah, I'm seeing banks tighten things up. Not on one of my projects, but a friend in Salt Lake just kind of had a bank say no to an industrial project, which like industrial has been like the sweetheart for a while. And so I think they're really starting to look at like, kind of their overall portfolio and where they're like where banks are kind of highly levered. So, I think we saw a lot of shift from hospitality, obviously, to things like multifamily, mixed use, and industrial platforms. And so that's the first one that I'm seeing that's starting to like ease a little bit, is the interest of taking additional risk within the industrial space. So I think that we'll probably see that slow down a little bit. But I do not see anything slowing down in the multifamily space. So we're still a very desirable place to live. We still have a lot of people who are moving here. And I think that the thing that we're really all going to be challenged with is like, how do we have affordable and attainable housing for people?
Truly.
Whether it's rental or purchase. Mm-hmm.
I think the numbers I saw were negative, 100,000 or more units just to meet current demand. And
yes,
that those projects will take 3 to 5 years to build out and will be even further behind. So the demand seems to be there. The second piece that I wanted to follow up on something you said, you target particularly the denser urban core. How is it to work with those communities, and are you seeing any challenges in a regulatory environment that would maybe?
Well, unfortunately, this is this is being recorded. Okay, Yeah, it is hard everywhere. I will say that I recently just helped the Downtown Denver Partnership do a kind of fulfill their pop-up program on the 16th Street Mall for some of the work that we're doing there to try and kind of bring life back to the mall. I will say that Denver worked really hard. Like the planning team worked really hard to get us through, because pop-ups are challenging. They're like temporary certificates of occupancy. They're not like full like certificate of occupancy. So we had to work through like a lot of different things to try and make that program happen and to get tenants in. Ultimately, we were successful, but it took a lot of coordination and a lot of trust that we were all going to do the right thing. But it was definitely probably twice as long as what everyone had hoped. I think right now, when I'm starting out on a new project perspective, I have a new project in Fort Collins. And it was like 14 to 16 months just to get through entitlements. And that's like a use by right. So that's not me coming in and trying to rezone something, or like this is already has its zoning. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
When we used to be like under a year to be able to do that, and could consistently count on like, okay, it's a year for entitlements. And now it's taking us, a lot longer. Part of that is staff, and being able for them to recruit and retain talent in city government, I think is really challenging. We saw a lot of people leave during the pandemic, and like there's still a lot of positions that are open within all of those departments. And so a lot of this is just from a staffing perspective. They just don't have it to keep up with the demand of what's happening in all of our communities. So I think that's going to be it's going to be an ongoing challenge, regardless of whether or not you're doing like something incredibly urban in Denver, or you're doing, something still as urban, but in Fort Collins. It's taking a considerable amount of time.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that ripple effect about the Great Resignation in inspections, trying to get inspections done, that they just don't have.
Accurate.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And then, you never pass on your first one. You never pass on your first inspection. So if any of you have to ever get one done, you never pass, and that's totally okay. But they'll give you like your roadmap, but then just to get rescheduled, you're like, how long? Okay, so like, can't you come back tomorrow? I'll fix it right now. Yeah. So
watch me.
It's
just
rough.
Stay here. Just watch me fix it. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Question for you, shifting gears a little bit, on this journey to where you're at today, who's been your biggest supporter, or your biggest fan, or your biggest mentor?
Ooh. I mean, a lot of people, I think. I started this company 4 years ago. I left with just my own money that I've made through my career. I didn't have an investor or a project that I took with me. And so I was like, all right, we're just going to see how this works. Like, I got enough money to pay my bills for a little bit, and let's see what happens. And I would say the amount of people that came out in support of just whatever I needed, right? Like advice. Carla Dorr, who promises she's going to watch this. So now I'll shout her out, and we'll see if she responds to me that she did watch it. But she's been incredible. There's just so many people who have been business owners for a long time, whether it was in real estate or otherwise, that have just really been incredible support systems for me. So Bill Mosier for Trammell Crow has always been a huge, we're both fans of each other, incredibly supportive of one another. Nicole Stottinger from First Bank, who is also a GGF member, trying to navigate PPP loans. It was fascinating to watch all of us do that. None of us had to do that before. The group texts that were going around about what bank was being great to work with and who was doing what. And so all of that from just like an entrepreneurial piece, there was a lot of, I think we're incredibly lucky. I still live in Northern Colorado. And I would just say, I just think that we're really lucky that we have kind of this entrepreneurial spirit in our community, and so many people are willing to help. I just don't know if that exists everywhere.
I love that. Anybody who's come into our community and checked in at the chamber or the Innisphere or in the real estate or investment community, I can't believe how friendly and helpful you all are. It is something unique to our community. I appreciate that recognition.
Yeah.
And for all of us on the Green and Gold Foundation, I would ask that we reflect on those significant mentors and supporters and raving fans that we've had in our lives that have helped us along. And I would challenge you to write a thank you note. We opened today's call catching Eric licking envelopes in his office. And so I would challenge you all to do a handwritten thank you to a mentor who's made a significant difference in your life. Seal that envelope and send it off. It'll make their day.
That's great.
Yeah, so thank you.
Agree.
I want to keep moving along here. And, you know, every morning we get these emails in our inbox and we see the headlines. Do these 3 things for success in life. Do these 5 things and you'll be ultra rich. Do these, you know, take these 2 steps or take this. And so I'm asking you, we all want to know, you're wildly successful and we're big fans of your entrepreneurial spirit. What is your secret to success? Do you have a routine, a morning routine? What do you attribute a routine that helps you be successful?
I do have so I love to I'm very structured, right? So this is probably not a surprise to anybody that I'm incredibly
It's a
structured,
great
but
question.
yeah. So I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I work out at
Let me
5.
just clarify. You get up at 4:30 in the morning.
I get up at 4:30 in the morning.
No one's forcing you. You just
No. Okay. Yeah. I just do it. You know, it became I transitioned to doing this after I started the company. I like working out. It is I need that physical time because nothing happens in my brain when I'm doing that. So I'm not I don't work out with friends. I just really enjoy that physical piece of giving my brain a break. But what I was finding is that my days are so incredibly full that I would get to the end of the day and I was just exhausted. And I was I can't work out at night. I have to make a transition to working out in the morning. So I found a Pilates class that I love in town. It's at 5:20 in the morning. So I have to leave my house at 5. So I'm up at 30 in the morning and I go do Pilates and my brain 100% does not function in that class. I forget which one's my left foot all the time. And there's very little thinking. There's just trying not to die because it's a really hard workout. But that's how I start my day. And I've always been somebody who can produce a lot of content, but doesn't lose attention to detail. So I do get a lot done throughout my day, but I think the early start is just critical because the emails and things start to wind down. We all know that we're getting them all day, right? But it starts to get less and less after 7 o'clock. And so it's just a way for me to kind of control the start of that so that there's a space in there for me. But otherwise, I just think I'm pretty diligent on what needs to get done. And I don't procrastinate. So I think no procrastination and really allowing yourself effectively 14 hours to work is a key to success. It's funny to hear people say that I'm successful because I still have so many goals and things that I want to achieve. So thank you. But it's I think the other thing for me is that I've just I try to really control what I can. And I've gotten better at that with age. But I just really try not to get sucked into things that I can't control. It just is, there's so much that you can't control in this business. So you just focus on what you can, and then you're just going to kind of advance things every day, but just don't get sucked into the things that aren't going to move you forward. So.
Wow, powerful. I love hearing your story, and yes, you are successful, and there are other mountains to conquer. There's a great book I'd recommend for everybody, David Brooks, called The Second Mountain, and you get to what you think is a point of success in your life, and you look around and you see there's another mountain to climb. Yeah. And just a good reminder that they're to stay challenged. So I love how you're viewing that you're not done yet. You're not there, and you're not done yet. And another message for all of us as well is what I'm hearing is you had to make a shift to, put yourself first to be what you need to be successful. And that's going to be getting up early in the morning. And that's going to have exercise, moving your body and getting your mind focused so you can be ready to take on the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, for a lot of us, we have it upside down. We'll think of everybody else first and then put ourselves last at the end of the day. And then I'm too tired, and then it never happens. And all of a sudden, like the pyramid on its tip, we fall over. And so building that strong base of good health and good practice. Thank you for sharing that.
Ashley, I gotta ask, if you're waking up at 4:30, when are you going to bed?
Oh, early. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. I never make it to the news. So I'm out before 10 o'clock. I never make it. I try, and then I'm like, well, got to Google what the weather's going to be. I never make it. So
good company.
Yeah.
Yes, good company. Yeah. You can't soar with the eagles if you're going to hoot with the owls. Just
that's right. There you go. Yeah.
Next question I have for you is just reflecting back on your relationship with CSU and the Green and Gold Foundation. Anything stand out, a favorite memory or favorite connection regarding CSU?
Ooh, a favorite memory. That's a really good question. I have a lot of really good memories. So, I mean, I met my husband at CSU, so that probably should be in this. Okay. So yeah, we met in, so we met in Dr. Klett's horticulture class. I can't remember which one it was, but it is funny. I've now met 3 people who met their spouses in that class. Which maybe just tells you like it's really hard. So you had to form a friend, and those friends became significant partners. And I still only remember a handful of Latin for trees. Okay, so probably one of the better memories. I would just say I really enjoyed my time at CSU. I was actually just back on campus today and was dropping off something for the Spur campus. We're having some of our art pieces are going to be 3D printed. And so I got to go and like meet with all of the mechanical engineering students and see like how they're printing things and all of these like crazy like experiments and labs that they have. And I just find it really interesting how much CSU is doing in so many different spaces. And I'm proud to be an alumni from there. And then when Eric asked me to join, I think, well, Eric, I said, yes, but only if I can be on the membership group and get a bunch of women, right? So yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then that's been so much fun to like find other people who are also passionate about CSU and wanting to give back and to do something more for the university and finding ways that we can feel like we're making an impact. And I think that that's always, you just get a lot of energy whenever, like when we all used to be able to be in person, or we have like our annual meeting where we get to see all of the options of where we get to put our dollars. You leave feeling really good, like you're doing something that matters. And I find that to be something, I love that. Who doesn't love that? It's great.
Awesome. You know, who knew that Green and Gold Foundation was the source of dating advice? For all of our single GGF members, I would highly recommend that you audit this horticulture class, because
don't do it.
You might meet your
I love Dr. Clay. He is still there. Yeah.
I think you should be writing a thank you note to this to Dr. Clint for sure.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Well, we got to tell him in person. It was great. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Or a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up to any questions here at the audience. Interesting question here. If you could time travel only once, would you go back in time to speak with your ancestors, or would you go forward to speak with your descendants?
Oh, this is so hard. Okay. My husband and I talked about this. I was like, ooh, which would you do? And he was very much a future person. And I think that if I had to pick, I'm so torn. I wish I could do both. Maybe I'm going to change my answer. I totally thought that I would go into the future. Okay. Yeah. So a really big part of who I am is that I'm Chickasaw. So I'm Indigenous. It's a huge part of my life. I try to be as active as I can with my nation and do as much as I can for bringing awareness around Indigenous people. in my lane, right? And so I think that maybe I would go back and speak to some of my Chickasaw ancestors, and be able to learn more about our culture from them and from their perspective, because it's a pretty deep and rich one. So I'm sure I would bring a lot of really interesting things forward.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's been a mixed bag. We've seen people wanting to go
Yeah.
back and speak with ancestors and why did you do this? Or tell me more about this, or tell me
Yeah.
more about our heritage and our history. And people wanting to
Mhm.
go into the future and say, did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I
thank
don't
you.
know. Ignorance is bliss. Maybe I don't want to know if I did it right. You know?
I'm just going to do the best I can and hope for the best.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. In this journey that you're on, any lessons learned that you would share with us? Maybe things that didn't work out like you thought that we would benefit from knowing about?
So I was really honored. I got to be a moderator this year for the partnership forum for ULI. And so essentially I get like a cohort of young leaders and they follow me for like 6 months and we get to talk about all of the things about real estate development and how they're navigating their careers. And I was asked, like, what's one of your biggest failures? And I thought about it and we all laughed later because I was like, is there something like wrong with me, like, like mentally, that I don't think I've failed? And I know that there are things that have not gone right. But I know that like from each of those, I've just thought like, oh, okay, that's not meant to work. And so I pivot. And so and I think part of this is that like I don't really hear the word no very, like, I mean, I know people say it to me, but I just think that you just like, oh, okay, we just haven't found yes yet, right? So like, I'm going to keep pivoting until I find a path to yes. And so maybe we start with people saying no, but do you really mean no? Or can we like keep maneuvering to find something that works for all of us? And I think to be fair, that's what development is, because you're told no a lot. And if you stop at the first no, you'll never do a project, right? So you have to keep like reinventing and rethinking and changing and editing, for lenders and investors and a municipality and tenants. And so it's never like you have this straight path to yes. And so when I think about like failure, I think like, well, there's things that haven't worked out, but maybe it led me to something that was better. And I think that part of doing what I do is just making it so no doesn't bother me. And I don't think that no, except for in some circumstances, is like the end answer. I mean, sometimes you hit a no, you just can't get through it. But for me, and then so we all laughed, right? So I was like, I was asking other people, I'm like, do you think that you failed? Okay, like how do you define failure? But for sure, there's things that I've learned along the way. But I think that your ability to be resilient and to say like, okay, I heard no, but really that just means no to this thing. It's not no to the greater ask. So how do we keep moving? So I think that that's like one of my biggest things that like I've noticed within myself, that I just don't get deterred very quickly.
Ashley, that's powerful. And it really is representative of a growth mindset that if you are told no, it's not the end of the world. And I had to write it down because it's going to be my quote of the day and I'm going to take it into my Tiger meetings. We haven't found yes yet. And that's resilience. That is just, that's a great way to frame things and look at maybe when I don't hear the answer I want, let's come back, listen harder, and see if we can get to yes.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
a resiliency and growth mindset, but it's also like an abundance mindset. And I think that probably a lot of people on this call or that listen to this call down the road can relate to that. Someone told me a long time ago that as a salesperson, your job doesn't start until somebody tells you no. And you're actually not even a good salesperson until somebody tells you no. And then you've got to figure out, like you said, how to get to yes. So I think that's a very relatable statement.
Yeah.
Can we just decide as a group that we're all going to steal that line? We haven't found our way to yes yet. I mean, can that be a little
Please do.
here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Trademark it. Just jump out and trademark it real quick and we'll all pay your royalties.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a little trademark in the corner of the screen right now. Okay. Yeah. We'll add it in post. Yeah.
Great. Ashley, you know, this community, and I go back to gratitude for the Green and Gold Foundation and the community of folks that have gathered around the table and said yes to being a part of this. We're here because we want to help. We want to help CSU. We want to help each other. What can we as the Green and Gold Foundation do to help you? What would you need from us? And what is the best way that we can help you?
I mean, what I love about Green and Gold is that, you know, I think that this is like an amazing network of professionals. I can't wait for all of us to like be able to be back in person. I think doing pieces like this so we can learn more about one another's stories, so we can connect with each other on like a deeper way, you know, so it's like, oh, I find, you know, commonality in what you're doing or how you're doing it. And are there opportunities for us to do things together? I think that's the part that I love about Green and Gold. And I'm thankful that we're doing this. So thank you, Matt. But I also like can't wait for all of us to be back where we get to have those conversations in person again. Because I think that that's some of the like immense value. Like, yes, we all love CSU and we want to give back, but this is like a pretty powerful network of people. And so I think just being able to have more conversations around what we do and what we're passionate about, I think is what I'm looking forward to being able to do more of.
Great. Ashley, thank you. And please don't hesitate to reach out with any needs to this community.
Yeah.
And that's a great wrap-up question before I open it up. Outside of development and design, what are you passionate about?
So I paint. So I've had a studio in my house since I was in high school, in every home I've lived in. And so I spend what little free time I have right now being able to paint. I mostly am doing commission work at the moment because I don't have a lot of free time. So commissions are great for me because they usually have deadlines. But I haven't painted for a little while, but I have 2 that I'm set to deliver here pretty soon. So
Terrific. Wow. So I'm hearing an Indigenous woman entrepreneur making her mark in design and real estate, who is an artist as well. Powerful. This has been great to spend time with you this afternoon and get a little insight into who you are and how you operate and how you think about things. And I've got some great takeaways here. At this point, I'd like to open it up. Any questions from our participants here on the call today?
Ashley, quick question for you. Can you just walk us through graduating high school, how you picked CSU, why you picked CSU? Did you come immediately after high school? And then what dorm you were in at CSU, if you were so lucky to stay in one of those dorms?
Also, you just asked like the hardest question of my whole life. Okay, so I moved, I think when last time we like actually counted, I went to like 20 schools, K through 12. So we moved a lot. So I actually finished high school in Wisconsin. And then I went to UW La Crosse for a little bit. By the time I came to CSU, I had decided, so I was in the architecture program there. It was not a good fit for me. And I actually came back to visit friends in Fort Collins, and I was connected to Bruce Hendy. So if any of, I don't know, Olson, if you remember Bruce Hendy, but Bruce Hendy had his own studio for the longest time as a really well-known landscape architect in Northern Colorado. He actually became our director of sustainability for the city and really reshaped the way that Fort Collins actually looks. And some of the programs we have, like our flower program and like all the like beautified like medians and how we have a lot of traffic calming, that was all Bruce Hendy. And so I got to go to his little studio and I like fell in love with landscape architecture. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because this is like so much more about community. This is like what happens outside of the building and all of these different spaces. And so that's why I got super excited to go to CSU. So by the time that I went to CSU, I was a single mom. So I was an untraditional student. So I did not live in a dorm, and had bought a townhouse on the south side of Fort Collins and worked full time and went to school full time and had a Lana. So my college experience was very different. Also probably why I was like appreciative of CSU, because they were relatively accommodating back then. Like, so it probably was pretty accommodating as much as you could ask for. So yeah.
Cool, thank you.
No dorm, sorry. Yeah.
Other questions?
I've got some questions, but I want to let Brad or Adam, if they're on, ask some questions as well. If not, I wanted to dig in a little bit. That last question that we asked before we opened it up to everybody, how can the Green and Gold community help you? You spoke about how you've done work with pop-up shops on 16th Street. You talked about, Four Seasons hospitality. Do you have any other niches that fit your brand and what you're looking to do when it comes to building Tribe?
It's a great question. So I really love hospitality-based projects. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be a hotel. So I love mixed-use projects. But I like that sense of like we're expanding somebody's understanding of like a very well-defined community. And we get to do that through real estate. So that's where I tend to be from like a project perspective, is somewhere in there. So those kind of mixed use, highly complicated projects tend to end up being the ones that I kind of get involved in, because that's where my skill set is. I know how to navigate all the complexities related to being able to do them. So whether that's like a public-private partnership, which is almost what like Spur is, although that's all state funded, or I've got another project that's a P3, but those are kind of those like tougher projects are the ones that I really like. So
awesome. Quick follow-up on that. What's your capacity at right now? Are you looking for business? Are you overwhelmed? Are you right where you kind of want to be? I think that again, being able to provide value to you is a big part of what we're doing today, but also anybody that's on the call now or going to listen in later, if Ashley can help you, reach out to her as well. See if Ashley can help you with something. So what is your capacity looking like at the moment?
Well, we're soon to be 5 people. So I am actively looking for a chief of staff. I really need somebody who can do some pretty significant work for me. And so I can't wait to find that person. I will say that I've really thought a lot about how I want to define success for the business and for myself. And for me, that doesn't mean that I don't want a big team. I've done that. I've had really large teams in the past. And for me, I want to have, a couple of great projects every year with, I'm hoping, less than 10 people in my office, where I still get to be like highly involved in what's happening. And we just get to build like a really solid machine of a company where people have an opportunity to generate wealth because of the projects. And so more than them getting a paycheck, but it's like, this is when you have a small office and you do good work, then your opportunity to share is pretty transformational for folks.
Yeah.
And so that's really how I want the company to function. So, because I think that is where I'm going to find happiness in what I'm doing and how I can affect the people that are working with me to help create it. So I've been really kind of strategic in thinking about what's the size of the company I want. I think in development, we unfortunately remove the emotional part of what we do. So we talk about like apartments and units, which is really sad, instead of talking about them in places where people create their life.
Yeah.
We talk about how much we have, as a number under management, instead of talking about these are the great communities that we got to affect with our projects. And so I've really been thoughtful of like, how do I want to talk about this company and the way that we want to affect things so that I can attract the right people, but I want it to stay small. So I really love being able to know everything that's happening and to be able to be, in the weeds of deals and what we're doing. So I think maybe 10, but 10 sounds like so many. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a little PTSD from like big environments. So yeah.
Well, you answered my last question, which was going to be to define success for Tribe. So thank you for doing that preemptively.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Brad, looks like you might have a question.
Yeah. So, and my apologies, I was in transit for the beginning part of the meeting and then had to switch once I landed here. But
Great.
If I heard correctly, you started Tribe 4 or 5 years ago. Is that correct?
Four.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
almost half of your time has been either during or post pandemic. I
Yeah.
think we all had some pretty good revelations, right, from both a personal, a family, and a business aspect, and going through that.
Mm-hmm.
What revelations, for you came out of that for Tribe and for your business?
It's great. I think I used to always say like I only sweat the small stuff, it would be like I could handle all the big like difficult things, and then like it would be the smallest thing, and that's what would be like I would just really really kind of focus in on. I've stopped doing that. I think I've really just kind of I am much more willing to just kind of like go with what happens. I mean, of course, I'm trying to direct as much as I can. But I think with the pandemic, it just said like we couldn't control anything. And so for somebody who likes to be in control, that was like a really good eye opener for me, was that there was nothing that I could do to change that situation. The other thing that I like identified within that is that like the only thing that I could do was like control my ability to pivot to other things. And I was small, so I got to move very fast. And I think, the people that were innovating and that were thinking about how they were going to move are the ones that we can just see who are just like crushing it right now. And we're going to, we saw the same thing happen as we were all kind of navigating the last recession. I mean, this was different. But it was all of the people who were just like being really forward thinking and saying, no, we're not going to try and stay the course. We're actually going to adjust so that we can respond to things in a different way. And I think that fortunately I was able to do that. I'm a developer who people hire to consult on their projects, which is really unusual, because we all think that we have a secret sauce, which we don't. Everyone is kind of the same, okay, but nobody wants to bring outside folks in. And I'm really fortunate that somehow I've escaped that and people really want me to help them with their projects. And that was all part of the kind of like me pivoting and thinking about the business differently in the pandemic to think about how else can I generate revenue for the business. So, and it's stuck. And I really
That's
enjoy
awesome.
it. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Ashley, one of the things that I've always been fond of is great connectors, and I think you're one of the best that I've ever been around. And the relationships you've been able to build and the ability for you to connect to people carries tremendous amount of weight. What's the secret sauce in that? Because I know everybody thinks they know a lot of people, but to truly connect people where there's value on both ends takes an art, and it's also a science. What's the magic there of being able to have this broad network, but then also connect to people authentically and where there's value on both sides?
Well, I think the first part is that like I really love it. Like I love doing that. I get so much like I feel valued in those situations, and it usually has nothing to do with me, right? It's like getting two people together that I think is going to be, like really great for both of them. But I get a lot of joy out of being able to do that. And then my network has gotten really big. I've been here for so long. But I don't really think about it or treat it like it's a network. I really think like those are all my friends. Like I legitimately believe that these are all my friends. And so I take care of it like they're friendships and not a network. I hate it when people only call me for things and not to see like how I am or what's going on in my life or, hey, I saw this. And, like I tend not to nurture those, and I try to cut them out as quickly as I realize that they're more transactional relationships. But I try to make sure that I'm being really mindful that nobody ever feels that I treat them that way. Because I think it's important, but I really do. I love that. I love getting to like meet people and learn what they do. I find it incredibly fascinating. Like I was talking to somebody and they were telling me like, oh, every time I go on vacation, I always think like, could I live here? And I was like, really? I've never thought that. But like every single person I've met, I'm always like, oh, I wonder if I could do that for a career. Like every time, like I'm just very fascinated by what people do and how they spend their lives. And so I think that comes across as like, I'm actually legitimately interested. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, to everyone, thank you. And Ashley, can't thank you enough for being
Thanks for
our
having
back to
me.
school feature. Just really appreciate the insights you shared, the stories. And to everyone on the call, thank you for making the time to listen and to be a part of Green and Gold Foundation. Before we wrap up today and turn off the recording, turn it over to Eric. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think, this is a great start to what is really powerful about this network. And I think all of us need to lean in to get to know each other and to be proactive in the relationships we build in the group. This group was built outside of CSU for that reason, to do business together, to network together, to grow from each other, to mentor, to bring the younger folks along and have a faster track to success. And so this group works because of the members' involvement, and we're all here on a volunteer basis. So as you get to watch these videos and see the magic in this group, let's everybody lean in and take a part of what's happening here.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
Matt.
And if you know any women that need to join GGF, send them my way. Okay.
I love it. I love it. Matt, any thoughts you would share? Thank you again for being the impetus of this, and any thoughts you'd share as we wrap up today?
No, nothing different than what Eric said. Just again, this works when we give back to each other. So let's continue that and lean in, like Eric said.
Terrific. And Ashley, again, thank you. Any final closing
you.
thoughts that you would have with the crew here today?
No, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me be the first one. That's always like super intimidating. This is a good group. So you all looked very friendly. Okay. Appreciate everyone's time. Go Rams.
Yeah, go Rams.
Ashley, go Rams.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We'll send out
Thank
the recording,
you.
probably either tomorrow or early next week. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks all.